والله هذينا غضا قبر الصليب فكوا فيه. الله أكبر. هذه مطيح.
Now, that is the maddening footage of war graves of Canadian, British, and Italian soldiers in Libya being desecrated just months after those three countries helped liberate the Libyan people from Muammar Gaddafi. Are we wrong to have done it in the first place? Michael Coren, host of The Arena, joins us now. Michael, this sort of thing just makes me start thinking, hey, maybe this Ron Paul character is on to something, especially when it comes to helping out countries in that part of the world obtain their freedom. It doesn't make the Arab Spring look good, does it?
No, well, the Arab Spring has never been particularly good, but I don't think Ron Paul is correct either. We should be helping friends. The problem is we've helped enemies. Gaddafi was a monster, but he had become a monster who was willing to speak to the West. His regime fell. They sodomized him, then murdered him. We saw what animals they were when that occurred, and now we see this. They're laughing as they do this, and just in the broken Arabic I have, some of what they're saying, well, they're saying to the guy who's standing up on the ladder, they're saying, we won't let you fall, and then they find the grave of an English Jewish soldier. This is pre-Israel, this is the Second World War, so a Jewish man, a British man in the British Army, and they're saying, we found Israel, and then they're shouting, God is great, as they're laughing. They're doing all this. They're desecrating Christian graves. And they found a Canadian as well, by the way. A Canadian's grave was desecrated. They're doing this, the most cowardly act. Yeah. They're destroying the cemetery of people who fought against Nazism because, of course, of the burning of the Korans.
And in the Second World War, these were, the British and Canadian anyway, were soldiers that liberated Libya in that time from Italian colonizers.
Well, they were, but I mean, look, let's be honest here. I don't think the war was fought to liberate these countries from the Italians. The war was fought because this was a battlefield between the forces of good and darkness, between Nazism and the Western powers. But look, these were great. It's horrible this happened, but these men are already with their maker, unlike the people who desecrated the graves. They will be in hell. So these people are already saved, if you like. It's when innocent people are murdered in Afghanistan. Ordinary American soldiers going out there to do good, to be advisors, to try and rebuild the country, slaughtered, murdered, their families still grieving. The majority of the victims, of course, are ordinary Muslims in Afghanistan. Just a week and a half ago in Pakistan, Shia Muslims executed by the side of the road. A suicide bomber, a Sunni suicide bomber blowing himself up outside a Shia mosque. Don't tell me this is about Palestine. Don't tell me this is about poverty. Don't tell me we have no weapons to fight with. This is violence for the sake of it. This is a longing for, a lust for, an almost sexual attraction to blood and guts and violence and death. These are the people we believe that we can help if we intervene and send money. No, we can't.
Well, and it brings it back to Afghanistan, because today, Associated Press reporting that at the air base where the Korans were burned, and we've talked about this before, a lot of people are not, there were messages being written inside, and the Korans were being used as a transmission method for communications between prisoners. So that's why they were burned. But because of those books being burned, violence continues, and today a suicide bomber blows himself up, killing 2 civilians, injuring 4 others. So they're killing Afghans trying to get American soldiers, and we're still there helping them.
Yeah. Well,
should we, because I think this, and I just want to go back to this, I mentioned Ron Paul earlier, I think it's these sorts of things that makes people say, you know what, we don't need to be helping people. No, we just pull our soldiers back and stay home.
Well, there are, to say again, there are people we do need to help, but that doesn't mean we help everybody, and we have to question what that means to help people, because in Syria now, for example, I mean, there are actually those out there saying we have to intervene. I don't want this slaughter to take place, but you've got to remember what's going on. It's not these innocent people in one part of the country fighting the evil regime. This evil regime, well, when it goes, and it will go, what will take its place? I can guarantee it'll be the Muslim Brotherhood. And they will begin to get rid of Christians and certainly Alawites in the area. There'll be mass slaughter because they see infidels in their midst. Assad's followers are people who broke away from Shia Islam, which in itself is thought by Sunni Muslims to be the most appalling, almost even worse than the Jews, they say. So there will be bloody civil war. as there has been in Iraq. And if we hadn't have intervened in Libya, do you think the regime would be better, worse? It wouldn't be any different at all. This is not to say that people can't improve themselves, but when you have a region that... Well, look, when you said burning the Korans, these Korans, as you say, that there were coded messages from one terrorist to another, and because they were burnt, this is why the violence has taken place. It's merely a symptom. The violence will take place for whatever reason and whatever pretext, no matter how flimsy, because there are people who want to be violent. When the struggle in Ireland, Northern Ireland, there is a handful of people who still want to be violent. But the vast majority say, you know what, we've got peace now, we've achieved something, we move on. This is not the case in many regions of the Middle East. If Palestine had its own state, prosperous and free tomorrow, I guarantee you the violence would continue.
Okay, then let me interrupt and ask quickly here. We keep hearing from liberals, Michael Ignatieff was behind this, Lloyd Axworthy. We've got the responsibility to protect, as the United Nations doctrine. We've got to intervene. Is that just fools' ideas?
Neither men are fools, but both are buffoons. Isn't it enough that Ignatieff can ruin the Liberal Party? Does he have to go on to try and ruin an entire country? They don't know what they're talking about. Do you know why Israel has survived in the region? Because Israel learned to behave like its neighbours. I don't say that with enormous relish. I think it's far more civilized. But it will say, we have to play tough. And when it plays tough to survive, we say, how dare they do that? Well, you have to be. There is a certain religious imperative. There is a social imperative that leads to a breakdown of what we think of civilization and civilized behavior. And I know that it sounds as though we're being judgmental. It's time to judge. We're not helping here Germany in 1945 or Japan in 1945 and 1946. We're talking about countries where what we think of as peace and stability is not desired. It's not the intention. It's something very different. If we interfere, it will just prolong agony.
All right, Michael Coren, thanks so much.